Hi everyone, good to see you again. This is Lance Vaughn, FSI founder, and I cannot wait for you to meet Sabine VanderLinden, an extremely impressive entrepreneur based out of the UK, an investor in like over 30 InsurTechs. In fact, she was the co-founder and CEO of Startup Bootcamp InsureTech. Startup Bootcamp InsureTech, based out of London. Extremely impressive lady. She has so many roles. That was actually the very first question I asked her, how she manages all of that and stays sane. So I hope you enjoy my spotlight with Sabine. I think you'll enjoy getting to learn more about her and the way that she sees the world. Let's jump in. Great. Okay, so Sabine, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I want to get started with this question. So on your LinkedIn profile, CEO, board member, ecosystem builder, advisor, investor, InsurTech influencer, and co-editor and author. So you're playing active roles in as many as 7 different capacities, according to your LinkedIn profile. How are you able to manage all of these responsibilities from day to day? And I really want to know, like, what's your favorite? What gets you the most excited to wake up every day?
Okay, so some of those roles are not mutually exclusive, just to be, just to be clear. And some have also come from my past pedigree. So yes, I'm CEO. So I'm the CEO of Alchemy Crew, which I launched with Dan White and Mintran earlier this year in June, which is all about enabling big companies, I would say insurers first, this is my core, but financial institutions as well, and hopefully new markets to actually do venture validations through our studio, so studio and lab. And we can do that very quickly in a few months. My second role as a board member is, yes, I'm sitting on a number of boards as an NED. And also, by the way, I'm a chairwoman on one. So that is actually for me to continue learning and continue to understand, as part of, I guess, my ecosystem building part of my role, how I can drive value for the sector, but also learn from others. For me, sitting on boards allow me to learn from others, to get some structure. And you know what? We don't know what Sabine is going to do when she's 55. Maybe she's going to have a lot of board seats, which is going to pay for the retirement, long-term retirement, right? So it's thinking long-term as well. As part of my CEO role, I would say I'm a assistant builder. So the way I see the world is all about building growth, building value through partnership. And I think I was quite good at doing it through Startup Bootcamp InsureTech and Hartford InsurTech Hub. I was able to build a portfolio of over 1,200 relationships with investors. With my team, we identified 15,000 startups, accelerated 70, but that required for us to screen through thousands. And we have also really strong relationships with corporates. So that has built, I've built really strong relationships with a lot of large insurers globally. And lastly, I have to take care of my babies, my startups. So that is what brings us into that ecosystem where I work and I gain value and I gain excitement from allowing this to happen. When you look at my advisor, so as I work with my ventures, let's say sometimes as board member, I will advise them to do the right thing. And because of Startup Bootcamp InsureTech, yes, I'm an investor in at least 30 startups, but I also invest in other funds. So I have equity in as an LP in other markets, in other funds. So that gives me my investor badge, but also I always look for new investor opportunity or investment opportunity to enable some of the investors I work with to give them the right deal flow. So it's all about, again, that ecosystem build. Lastly, I am, yes, co-editor and author of the InsurTech book. So that was written in 2017, right? And with Sean Neely and Suzanne Tracy, and we had a wonderful time, and Nicole Anderson, and we had a wonderful time working together on that book. I'm an author because I also wrote one of the chapters, but altogether we reviewed 270 submissions, and we edited 70 copy with Wiley. Wiley is super amazing and super strong and incredible into that publishing, how they publish things. So they gave us a lot of work. It took us a year to write that book. And I think it's a nice established achievement. A lot of university students are using the book. So the reason for the book actually is that there were not really anything around InsurTech before. I mean, you had to be probably part of the CII if you wanted to learn about insurance. CII meaning Charter Insurance Institute, where you have a lot of books. I have 5 CII actually. I never finished mine, so I apologize. But yeah, you have to study insurance, and I did. And what happens with the book is you find a lot of university, business school, which is teaching insurance and wanting future entrepreneurs and innovators to understand what to expect from insurance, to actually look at the book. So it is actually used at university. My favorite role is the ecosystem builder role.
That's wonderful. So the InsurTech book was the first crowdsourced book on insurance, and it was released last year, right? May 2019. So tell us a little bit more about the book, the specific audience that you're targeting, and maybe a key highlight, your favorite highlight from that book.
So personally, I mean, the book is an interesting project because it allowed us to learn from so many other influencers and amazing people who understand insurance. So we covered so many different topics, including understanding how founders, what is a founder's journey, how founders experience to become a founder working for a startup, not only, in our case, InsurTech startups, but founders 101. Other chapters covered going and doing InsurTech in an international basis, not just in the UK. So a lot of writers were from Asia, from the US, not just from Europe, which was superb as well. It was also about collaboration, how it is so important to work together to succeed. And I think a lot of InsurTechs know that. The only way to get by and to achieve an outcome is to work with others. And the value chain. I mean, there are other things where we look at InsurTech in the future. My favorite chapter was the one on business model. And this is one of my biggest passion, is to understand the business model of the future. So reading about big tech, adjacent tech, reading about insurance, insurers, and what are the strategies around the business model they implement, looking at technology in general and startup in general, and the strategies they select in building their own business model. That fascinates me. And I think that is a chapter which is super interesting. When we wrote the book, what we felt is, when we finished it, I remember Sean and Nicole and Suzanne saying, I'm really scared this is not going to be relevant anymore. And what I would say is, still reviewing the chapters, and even when I do some lecturing at the business school, sorry, I forgot to put that into my profile. I love talking about business models. So that's my favorite one.
That's amazing. So you actually forgot one of the roles that you need to add to your LinkedIn profile. So that's amazing. So you mentioned Startup Bootcamp, and for the last 5 years, you've served as an early stage investor, right, for them. Are there any select stories or lessons learned that you could share from that experience?
So I think one thing which is super strong about the Startup Bootcamp platform is that what we did is we reviewed a lot of ventures. So for me, what I learned is really screen amazing founders and amazing companies to actually select less than 1%, right? When you go that have a funnel of 15,000 ventures and you reduce those to, total 70, it's less than 1%, right, of the overall number of ventures we've reviewed. And one thing I really believe I learned is that to make good decisions, you have to look at 4 criteria, but also things change, right? Things do not sit in boxes. And right now with the current economic climate, things have shifted and we'll have to look at what happened next year. But my criteria have always been around the founders, wanting to identify people who care, people who had a passion, want to change the world, but also could execute on it. One of the lessons, I had great founders as part of the accelerator. Some, have closed shop. And what I learned from that is often those who close shop where probably the founders were not really focused on execution or understanding the client needs. So I often say a phrase when I coach the startups is, please don't give me your jellyfish story, which is for me, jellyfish is, take a jellyfish, you throw it, see whether it sticks on the wall. If it sticks, you think it's great, but actually that's not the way you win. So you need to do the reverse and really build for the customer and the customer need. Second part is, I remember blockchain, and we're still talking about blockchain today. Technology, timing, looking solution, which, as I said, customer want, because I focused on B2B ventures, I need to make sure that the insurers wanted to work with those ventures. So we had a few B2C, but then, we realized very quickly that the only way that a big player like Zurich or Travelers or some of the major brands out there, which were part of the programming, wanted to work with those organizations were to make sure that they had a solution for another B, not just for the C. And I would say lastly is, like any young venture, you need to look at financing and how money is being used. And so I would say, the strongest candidate would be really, mindful as to how long their runway can take them, and think about investment in a very strategic way, investment and making revenue in a very strategic way. So I think those are the main lessons I learned from my investor role at Startup Bootcamp.
Wonderful. You mentioned the economic climate. Let's talk about the ongoing pandemic for a few minutes and the impact that the pandemic has had and is continuing to have on the economic climate. So let's maybe start with InsurTechs. How are InsurTechs weathering the storm? Where are investments going? How are they doing?
So I would say, some of the numbers are going to come next year, but what I've seen is that when you look at the overall InsurTech market, around 1,500 ventures have received to date around 41 billion of investment since the beginning of InsurTech in 2015. And this year in 2020, we have seen probably around 5 billion of investment to date. I think we probably arrived to 6 billion, 6.1 billion, selling prediction by December 31st, 2020. But this is lower than last year. So let's assume we had 8 billion of investment last year, it would be around 2 billion less. It's not bad, investment are happening and this is great. Investors are looking for opportunities actually, and the right ones. What we see though, the investments are going to the largest players, the series B, C, D, the ventures with a reliable business model, which have already proven market fit, have acquired customer and making money. And I think it's the way that investors are de-risking their where they are putting money. However, from a seed viewpoint, what I've seen is investments are going for ventures focusing on efficiency savings, So, the digitization opportunity, the telemedicine opportunities, a lot of COVID-19 ventures, actually, I think it's around 40,000 ventures focusing on COVID-19. All of them have probably raised to date 160 billion, because a lot of ventures have also reallocated their proposition and pivoted as well to fulfill new needs. But what you find, investors are focusing on those players who are solving immediate problems and potentially some of the problems of tomorrow, which will be much more aligned to people, planet, and society, I think.
So you're an advisor to both startups and corporations. I'd love for you to share your insight on the other side of the puzzle, more of the incumbents. What types of projects are established corporations investing in right now? Are there any trends underway that you can highlight?
So we've, with the current crisis, the current situation, I've seen a lot of interest in operational resilience solutions. So a lot of demand around digitizing things which were not digitized, enabling salespeople to be able to sell like we are talking right now online. What you find is in some sectors or subsectors, salespeople are really much relying on face-to-face and had to make a shift to be able to do that from home. So that required some digitization, making sure that you could do the work, partner work or insurance work in a secured environment, still using your personal connectivity. So therefore need around cybersecurity and cyber risk prevention, therefore coming up from a remote working viewpoint. What I've seen as well is a need from virtualization. So as I'm working from home right now, I need to make sure that I have the right tool integrated with one another to actually provide a unique experience to those I'm working with. It's not just Zoom, right? It's more than Zoom. It's about virtualizing experiences, as well as understanding how digital technology combined together to do remote working works effectively to serve your customer and your buyer. I think lastly is around automation. I think AI will still be prevalent. Cognitive intelligence, and when you start looking at automation, there was a lot of things happening for sure on the bots and the variety of bots, not just chatbots. You have a new bots coming, talk bots, and so many different bots. But it just shows that AI is for sure is there to stay. But there is so many new technology and new techniques coming to market to drive that automation with the customer.
That's wonderful insight. Thank you so much for your time today, Sabine. I really appreciate it. And let's stay in touch for sure. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lance. Thank you for having me today.